people from UK, people from Pakistan, people from South Africa, people from UAE, and we're connecting people. I mean, the registrations, when I saw them coming in, we have people from Canada, for example, and I said, wow, who would have known that we'd be able to have a panel discussion, not knowing the person, but having them here on our chat here today. So technology, that resilience of what happens when we are not tech savvy, how do we buy into it? How do we become more resilient? And then the last area for me, which is the most important about this panel discussion as well, and that is that human connectivity that we seem to have lost. We have been born into a society where human connectivity is so important that at the end of the day, we just need to have that connection where it was taken away, and now what? How many of us have actually gone into anxiety or stress because of that, or started having, for example, panic attacks because you aren't able to see somebody that you love and care for, or for that matter, even if it's your boss, and whether you love him or don't love him, being connected with him or her, for that matter, how have you been, what has it done for you to lose that connection? So our speakers here today is going to take us through that. Armal, I just need to check if you are checking in terms of Sister Sarah to make sure that she is with us, even if it is just through sound for now. Even if she can't get a camera going, we can just get her on sound as well. So if you can double check on that. Fantastic. So ladies and gents, let's start with the actual session. I just want to confirm that you all can see the screen in front of you. And the screen is just basically taking you through what this is about. It's week one of a group of panel discussions that we'll be having for the next 4 weeks. And of course, you'll find that it will be extended. We've got quite a few technical programs that we'll be talking about in terms of crisis management, with regards to panel discussions. We will be talking to top leaders in countries and organizations as to how they're managing crisis as well. So watch out for that series that will be coming out in the next week. However, this series here that we're starting off today is purely based on current COVID and post-COVID, all the challenges that we might be having within our business, our relationships, our parenting, technology, and human connectivity. So based around that, we're going to be looking at different topics. Next week, we look forward to a topic based on how you're managing your finances during this period and post-COVID, looking at investments. If you have investments currently, what are you doing with them? How are you worried about them, or are you okay with them? Have you invested in the right fields? Do you remove your money from one area and move it to another area? So we've got some expert advice that's going to advise us on that in next week, but also we're going to be looking at in that discussion the legal repercussions of your investments. For example, your legal repercussions of property if you have it, if you are a landlord, or if you are a lease holder, what exactly legal repercussions that the COVID current is having on you, and of course post-COVID of what it is having on you. So we've got some great experts talking to us about that. But for today, our panel discussion is specifically on resilience amidst this particular outbreak based on the introduction that I've given you. So for those of you who don't know me, and just welcome to the session, thank you. I'll be your host. So apart from just the credentials you see on the right-hand side, I strongly believe in the saying that I've got there on the left, is that we cannot become ourselves by ourselves. I believe we need to go out of our way to support each other. We need to be mirrored, emulated, and celebrated as who we are truly does make that difference in every one of our lives. And that's the reason that Orbrix here has decided, Orbrix Dubai, decided that we have all those heroes that are out there that are doing their best. Medical profession, we have the nurses, we have the doctors, we have the givers that are out there giving out and putting their lives at risk to transport people, the essential services from place to place, the bus drivers, the taxi drivers. We have people that are putting their lives at risk to going out and give out food, to give out things to people that can't afford it. And when Orbrix looked at this and said, what do we do best? And this is what we do best. What we do is we connect people over the globe. We connect people through training and development. We connect people through conferences. And if this is what we do best, then let us be the hero in this field to be able to say, what can we do to bring people together, emulate, mirror them, celebrate them, and see how we can make that small difference. So it's what I like about that last sentence is to become consciously purposeful in your life as a leader, whether you're a parent or whether you are a leader in an organization. So for me, these sessions, it's very exciting times that we're able to do that. And what I'd like, introducing the actual topic that we discussed earlier, as I've mentioned, is that across the globe, as you can see, that this coronavirus culture is emerging. It's a huge different culture. It's enormous, firstly. It's very spontaneous. And it's there, our aim is that how are we going to deal with public fear? How are we going to deal with the restrictions that we have in our daily life that we know has been there for ages? It's a way, it's become a habit, this way of life. And now what happens is that it's all disrupted. And what we as individuals are either becoming more anxious about it, or we're utilizing this time to become more creative about it. And we want to look at our expert panels this today to tell us how do we deal with this tedious isolation of quarantine in terms of fear, anxiety, our business, our relationships, our parenting, our technology, and so forth. So COVID-19 may alter the human journey, but today we are here to interact with this amazing speakers, as you can see, on those following topics that I've mentioned. And without further ado, I'd like to now introduce you to all our speakers. So we have Colleen, and you'll be able to see on the screen. I will ask her to introduce herself shortly. But Colleen is a business coach, Colleen Cubist. She's a life coach, she's a facilitator. She works with organizations and individuals to reduce stress and improve communication. So for me, the important reason of why we have Colleen here as well today is that we're not only going to engage with regards to the soft skill side of it or the emotional side, but also in terms of the business side of it, because it works with organizations to increase productivity and to get people fully engaged within an organization. Those of you that are leaders of an organization, you know that that is one of our core focus areas at this stage, because we're losing that engagement. So how do we get them more engaged? She has 22 years of experience in the medical device industry, and she has her BSc Arts degree. She's also, this is how I think I first met Colleen, but not in person, was through Commensa. I think we both belong to Commensa, and she's credentialed through Commensa as the Master Coach Practitioner, and she's also the Gauteng Chair, which is in Johannesburg, Gauteng, South Africa. So Colleen, welcome, and thank you for being here. If you can just give a shout and say hello. Your introductions will be done later.
Hello, thank you so much for the invitation. Hello to my panel and hello to everyone out there. It's very cool to be here.
Great. Thank you, Colleen. All right, and then we move over to our next panelist, and our next panelist is Mr. Kamran Ahmed Siddiqui. He's a motivational speaker. In fact, we're very honored to have him. He's also an author and I believe, Brother Kamran, please forgive me if I've got this wrong, but you've already authored 3 books, correct?
Yes.
Brother Kamran? Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Good. So he's also the Gulf News Leadership Mentoring column writer. He's an expert advice. I look forward to his columns that he writes almost every few weeks. You see it coming out, and sometimes I'm a bit delayed in reading them, but when you do, they're amazing. So he writes for the Gulf News on a weekly basis. He's a certified learning and development manager, a certified master soft skills trainer, and a certified Lean Six Sigma belt, and a professional engineer. Brother Kamran, if you'd like to just say hello to everyone.
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited being with that thought that inshallah we are going to share something of value. And thank you very much once again, Hawa, for creating and generating this opportunity. Looking forward for that.
Good to have you, Brother Kamran. Thank you. We now move on to our next panel speaker is Ms. Sarah Mohammed. I just need to check. Anmol, do we have Sarah online already?
No, she has some problem with her phone, so I'm just trying to resolve it.
All right, no issues. So just in terms of Sarah, another amazing woman that I've met here in the UAE for the last 6 to 7 years, these relationships like with Brother Kamran, with Sarah has gone on now for almost, I would say, 7 to 8 years since I've been here in the UAE. And this is a woman that I've learned that who has always looking for balance between buzzing that concrete jungle, as you can see, in terms of the difference between life and the inner self. And she's been looking for this for the last 10 years, but also in this 10 years, she has found so much of value in terms of linking that, where she looks at practicing yoga for 10 years, teaching yoga, and for more than 3 years, Sarah's style is a beautiful blend of storytelling, breathing science, and soul. But when you actually look at Sarah, you might think that she's just another ordinary woman who's doing all this coaching and mentoring, but she comes from a corporate, she's actually a corporate veteran for many years, and her experience with yoga has basically given her first-hand impact of balance and well-being in the work environment, performance and increased productivity. And of course, she comes with a lot of experience with regards to investments, with regards to financial portfolios. She's also an investment advisor. Apart from Sarah just being another person I met, she's also a very close friend who I've learned to respect over the last few years. So Sister Sarah, it's good to have you. I hope that we can sort out your sound and get you back online again. So hopefully we'll get that sorted out soon. Our next panelist that we're going to be introducing to you is Dr. Loretta Farushi. Dr. Loretta and I just met now recently over, I must say, the WCOE group, which is the Women Chamber of Entrepreneurs. I see that we have Ms. Joshna, who's the founder of that, online as well. So Dr. Loretta is a registered homeopath. She serves on the board of directors of the Kula Natural Health Center. Loretta has a health and wellness coaching company called Your Ideal Body that teaches individuals and group practical tools and techniques to obtain and maintain optimum health and fertility. She serves on the EXCO of the Homeopathic Association of South Africa and is currently the chairperson of the professional board for homeopathy and phytotherapy and naturotherapy. So all these therapy, which I know that Loretta is going to give you much more insight into, but it's this vast knowledge that we are thankful that you have and you are going to be sharing with us here today, Dr. Loretta.
Thank you, Hawa. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm really looking forward to being of service.
Awesome. Thank you, Doctor. All right, so let's look at our next panelist. And unfortunately, we can't get the video going with Brother Zuhair, but Brother Zuhair, I met him not personally, but via actually a very dear person in my life, my husband, and who was my life partner, but of course also my business partner. And he's attended a few training sessions with Brother Zuhair, and he came back and he just couldn't stop talking about him. And eventually I said, well, I need to connect with him. And this is how we've connected. We've connected over the phone before. He runs some amazing programs, and he's the founder of the Afia Healing, an alternative healing modality focusing on physical and emotional problems. And when I saw what Brother Zuhair was doing in terms of you know, the work that he taught my husband Rashid, and also how Rashid was able to apply that in our lives, but also apply it more in our business. He's basically taken neuroscience to a completely different level. He's connected neuroscience, what we normally know as our normal NLP, into something that is hugely dynamic. And I will leave Brother Zuhair to talk to you about that when he explains to you how to deal with changing that emotional trauma that we have and looking at energy specifically. How do we work with that? So this is one of the reasons I was very excited when he agreed to be our panelist here today. He's successful in teaching the art of Afia energy and emotional healing across UK and globally. So he does travel globally. In fact, Sister Sarah, hopefully when she joins us, will be a great connection with you, Brother Zuhair, for us to be able to look at how do we take that further here in the UAE. Zuhair is a charismatic trainer who delivers life-transforming workshops, seminars in various disciplines of healing, mental health, and well-being. And he's also a qualified clinical psychohypnotherapist. And some of you, that might scare you and say psychohypnotherapist, but I'm sure you'll understand it when he talks to you. But I think it's phenomenal to be able to combine all of this. And those of you who know about hijama, he's also a counselor and a hijama therapist, which is a very traditional way of removing excess negativity out of a body as well. So he's also known for the ability to readily identify his clients' underlying emotional root problems and proceed to effectively combine various healing techniques and therapies. So without further ado, thank you, Brother Zuhair, for joining us and for being here today.
Thank you very much for having me and waking me up early. Thank you.
I was saying to the panelists earlier when you were joining, before you joined, he's sitting in UK, and I know with the fasting month you were up already this morning and you went back to sleep and you probably woke up again. So unless you didn't. So, but thank you. We really appreciate you joining us this early part of the morning.
No worries.
Shukran. And then, of course, last but not least, we have our speaker, Liesl Thom, an amazing woman who I also met recently over webinars. It's so funny how you start to meet these people that you never met in your life, and yet we're in lockdown. Liesl did an amazing session for us in the beginning of this week where she spoke about how do you actually keep sane amongst this coronavirus that we're in at the moment. And she gave some very good tips and techniques to our people. So she believes that everyone has a story to tell, and her biggest joy in life is to help people question and reframe the stories they tell themselves about themselves, which I think is a great introduction. And thank you, Liesl, for actually being here today.
Thank you, Hawa. Hello, everyone. I look forward to this morning.
Good. So I'm going to stop showing you a screen because I think we want to get down to the actual panel discussion. And we'll just check in. Do we have Sister Sarah who's joined us already?
It's still not. Now she's not answering my phone. I think she's busy something.
All right. Okay. No issues. So we'll get started anyway. I've just stopped sharing the screen. I trust that you can all see the panelists' videos already. So what I'd like to do is I've given the introduction into what we are going to be talking about. Ladies and gents, the panelists, if I have to ask you each, firstly, before I ask you the questions, I want you to give me a brief introduction about yourself, more in terms of not about who you are, we've already gone through that, but more in terms of what are you dealing with regards to stress and anxiety, which we know should be a common for all. However, what recommendations would you start to suggest from your perspective for people to keep focused, for them to be motivated or engaged during this time that we are in the coronavirus? Armel, if I can ask for us to please mute everyone else besides the speakers. I see we have some lovely bird sounds coming through. We'd love to keep it in the background, but it might be a bit confusing for others. So if we can put a mute on everyone besides our speakers, please.
Just hold on a few seconds.
Thank you. All right, so shall we? Liesl, shall we start with you? Okay, Liesl, just hang on 1 second. We just want to make sure that Admiral can, let me just unmute all of the speakers. Give me a second. Okay, so Brother Zuhair, I've unmuted you. Colleen, I've unmuted you. Liesl, you are unmuted. You can continue.
Right, so for me, resilience is very closely tied to responsibility. Responsibility is made up of two words. The one is my ability to respond, but then also I have to take responsibility for my own actions. I can only control what is in my sphere of influence. I cannot control anything else out there. I cannot control the fact that there's this virus. I cannot control the fact that we are in lockdown. What I can control is my own emotions. And for me, one of the things is self-discipline. I have to be disciplined. And in fact, at the moment, I'm more disciplined with myself and the media I consume specifically than I would be at other times. Because as a journalist, I know that the media and the constant bombardment of figures and the dangers that we face is bad for our psyche. So self-discipline and responsibility.
Great. Liesl, I think you said something very important here is how do we become more self-disciplined with media? Media has been issue. Now, you being a journalist, you're part of that group that is putting that media out there here. How do you choose your media in terms of actually getting through to people? Have you become diligent yourself in terms of being a responsible journalist to actually look at what information goes out? Is it fake? Isn't it fake? And how do you recommend that people actually choose that?
Well, Hawa, I think the first thing to realize is that there's no such thing as the media. It's not one big blob that pumps out information. There are various kinds of medias, and you have to be very careful what kind of media you consume. Social media is fantastic to keep people connected. The dark side of it is that people, for various reasons, use social media to put out what we've now come to know as fake news. Social media is the driver of fake news because everybody who has a social media account in effect becomes a publisher, in effect becomes a journalist. So it's very important to know who is the source of my information, and then not to just continue sending things out if you are not 100% sure. If it sounds sensational, stop, question it. You know, and my work is to question everything. So choose 2 or 3 media houses that are credible, that you know have proven themselves over years to give credible information, and then limit the amount of time you spend on those media houses.
Fantastic. So Liesl, I'm going to come back to that question later as well when it regards to how do you actually select and choose, and what happens if you are addicted to social media. So I want you to think of that thought when you actually, as along, yeah? Shall we hear now from Brother Kamran in terms of the actual question? Brother Kamran, in terms of stress and anxiety, as I've mentioned, we know that it's a common for all, but however, what is it recommended from your perspective in terms of how do we keep people motivated, engaged, and just looking at your history, Brother Kamran, coming from the corporate entity and the field that you are from, looking at the books that you've written in terms of the people development skills with regards to dealing with emotions and how you deal with that. Can you tell the audience what is it that you would recommend to keep them focused, motivated, or even engaged in this time, both from a business perspective and a personal perspective?
Thank you very much, Hawa, for asking such an important question right now, because just to share with you that over the last weeks when this challenge happened, I've been on the stream of conducting those online sessions, and there is one of the question which is coming consistently is the same question, that how we are going to overcome that stress, because on every level there is a big uncertainty, and uncertainty causes that stress. First of all, I will highlight what is my interpretation of stress is. My interpretation is that all of us, we had certain standard in our mind regarding the way the organization should work, regarding the environment we are living, regarding the economy should work. So that is some of the set standards we are having. The moment that challenge happened, actually that gap has started happening, that whatsoever the standard, whatsoever the comfortable level I was having, now there is a bit of gap between that and that standard as well. So my understanding is when that gap started happening, the stress started happening. And as far as we are being comfortable, we know, we had a belief that we can overcome that. We are in the stressful state. And the bigger the gap happened, the bigger the stress level started happening. And there is certain threshold value. If it goes beyond that, then the people go into the depression mode, because depression is a state where the people feel like that now that gap cannot be covered in, and that is a real worry, that how to bring the people in on the right, calibrate them into the right level as well. So one of the things is, surely we are in a stressful state, because whatsoever is happening around, we have not anticipated that. It suddenly fall onto us, and there's a big gap has been happening. I would like to quote one of the interesting thing for my colleagues over here and the listeners. Sometime back, I have read a book, and I'm going to recommend everybody, because this is going to give us a real meaning, what is actually the purpose. There is a book which is called The Man's Search of Meaning by Dr. Franklin. And if you go through that, the interesting phenomena which Dr. Franklin in 1940s he has highlighted when he was being under the intense stressful state for quite a number of years, and he was the part of that concentration camp where there was only a survival chance for him was just 1%, and 99% was the chances that he is going to perish like the way the other people are being happening. He has highlighted a very interesting phenomena. He said that what is his learning during that whole process was that events do not have any meaning. They don't have any meaning, except the meaning which we assign to them. And that meaning which we assign carry a power within itself. And he has highlighted that part. And especially if I ask this question to all of my listeners and my colleagues over here, right now there is certain meaning we have assigned in our mind related to that COVID-19. And whatsoever the response we have been having right now is actually the interpretation of that meaning. So for some people, if this is an end of the road, if it is a total disaster, I can say that they have a totally different response altogether. There is in the height of panic, and they are being just conditioning themselves, listening to that painful news, because they already have made up their mind that this is going to be happen. The other thing where people will seek is as an opportunity. The people will say, because I highlight, we are in the defining moment of history. That has never happened. I mean to say, how many of the people in our predecessor, they experienced that thing? It happened 100 years back. So I would say we are in the defining moment of history. And in that moment, my belief is this is an opportunity to contribute. Because if I'm going to live a little bit longer, so I would like to take not only the narration of what I was experiencing, this sort of scenario to my grandkids, rather I would be happily would like to share what was my contribution, what was my role, what I was been doing during that part. So for me, this is an opportunity. For me, this is something I assign that it is a testing time for us. It is a resetting time for us. And maybe there is a lot more opportunities after post-COVID scenario, which we have not heard about it. Might be a little bit, there are a lot of other blessings which are happening. So again, if I sum up, stressful situation is always gone with the meaning which we assign to the event. And I leave the question, what is the meaning you are assigned to that? That will answer the query.
I love that, Brother Kamran. Just to look at, when we actually train in terms of customer service, or we train in terms of people getting leaders as such, as to what are your trigger points with regards to conflict. And one of the first things we look at is that words only have meaning based on what you have assigned to it, the meaning that you've assigned to it. So somebody might call you an XYZ. That doesn't have any meaning unless you assign a meaning to it. So you're absolutely right. I really like the way that you've actually linked that to what we're going through right now. And the question to all the listeners that are out there, this COVID-19, what is the meaning that you've assigned to it at the moment in your life? Because that's going to be your way forward in terms of how you're going to manage what you're going through at the moment. So if you put it, for me, initially, yes, I'm a normal human being going through all the stress and trauma. So yes, I had my bad days. I had the fact that you can't go and visit loved ones, even during the time of stress when you have a lost loved one and you can't be there for the family or for them. And eventually I had to start turning that meaning. And for me, the meaning was, Hawa, how can you become more purposeful in the session that you are in? How can you become more creative about things you've always wanted, but now here's an opportunity, you in the forefront. So when I changed that, I found that everything I did changed. So excellent words, Brother Kamran. Thank you very much. And by the way, all these points, we'll be making a note of them, and we'll sending it out as learning opportunities for everyone in the group that has also joined us, and we'll post it onto our Facebook pages as well. So thank you very much. Loretta, if we can actually go over to you. From your perspective, in terms of dealing with stress and anxiety, how have you been able to manage that in the field of the industry that you are in, especially homeopathy, where you are looking at all the pathies, and I won't list them again, but if you can tell us a little bit more about some of the clients that have been coming through to you with this kind of trauma that they're going through at the moment, and how you're able to manage and guide them so that the rest of us can learn from that as well.
Thank you, Hawa. I must be quite honest. I think that health is very much like insurance. You only really regret not having looked after it when you actually, when someone steals your motor car and you don't have the insurance policy, you go, oh my word, I should have had insurance. And health is not sexy until it's being really threatened. And at the moment, what is interesting enough with clients and people that I've been speaking to is they're concerned about their current health. But they're also, and I'm speaking specifically about people who are not particularly high risk, they're concerned about their current health. But this is making us think about what kind of legacy do we want to leave, and how do we want to be in terms of our health over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years? Because, we have our wisdom years in our 60s and 70s. And it's all good and well to be sitting with all that wisdom, but when you're actually consumed with what's going on in your physical body because you haven't really taken out that insurance policy, then it makes it very difficult for us to leave that lasting legacy. So my patients and people that I've been speaking and clients, they're concerned about the collective anxiety, they're concerned about their personal anxiety, and they've suddenly realized, oh my word, what are we going to do about our health? So I'll be quite honest, I personally have very little anxiety about getting COVID, only because, not because I think I'm bulletproof by any manner of means, but because health has always been a massive value for me. And so I've been paying my insurance premiums regularly. So, and even if I do get it, I believe that I'm resilient enough to actually overcome it because I don't really get ill. So I'm lucky, but I'm not really only lucky because essentially, luck is when preparedness meets opportunity, basically. So in actual fact, I've been preparing for this for a long time. And so have my family. And interestingly enough, I'm sure my daughter actually had COVID, and I suspect my husband had it too. And I haven't had it. So I probably am immune at this point. The point is that the part of this anxiety, which has really hit home for people, is economic anxiety, but it really is health anxiety. Because you can only be confident and resilient if you not believe that you won't get it, but that you'll recover from it, right? And so, so we know what we have to do about our health. But what the advice that I'm giving to people is, yes, so we know it's not rocket science, guys. We need to eat whole foods, mainly plants, drink enough water, sleep enough, and have healthy relationships and manage our stress. And a lot of people during this time are, for example, comfort eating. So, what I say to them is that eating behavior is a sign that you're distracting yourself from the anxiety. So emotions want to be felt. They don't want to be fixed. And look at the behavior. What behavior have you got? So if you're struggling to actually get your health on track, and if you're one of those people who says, well, I know what to do, and you've been saying that for years, basically, if you knew what to do and you could actually do it, you'd be doing it. So if you're not doing it, you need someone to help you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dr. Loretta. I think you hit the nail on the head, is how prepared are we in terms of this crisis? Do we believe that our body can withstand it? Yes, we're going to do our utmost best to prevent it. But if we do get it, how do we know that our body can actually prevent it? Have we been taking precautionary solutions from a long time ago? And I think this is a learning process for all of us here, is to look at our lifestyle for the future. Are we exercising correctly? Are we taking the correct nutrients? Are we eating the right foods? Because let's face it, Corona is not going to go away just immediately. Even if the lockdown comes out and we have to start mingling back in the workplace, we need to know that we are prepared and have a good immune system to be able to deal with it. And I think you came across something that's very important. So apart from just the emotional side, are we physically healthy as well? And the question is, I'd like to ask everybody here today, do you believe that you are physically healthy enough that if it hits you, that you are able to recover? We see here in the UAE almost recoveries of at least, sometimes 300-400, sometimes in a day, sometimes in a week. And we see there is a recovery stage. So our mindset should be set, hey, hang on, if I do get this, I will recover because I know I'm confident enough in my body. And how many of us can actually say that? So a question to leave you with. Brother Zuhair, all the way and waking up really early from UK. So I'm going to give you an opportunity. If you can tell us a little bit in terms of dealing with the stress and anxiety from your perspective as to that energy, especially from an energy perspective, since seeing that you've spent a lot of time on energy, how do you recommend for people to be able to become more motivated and more resilient at this time?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think this is the word that's been used all over. It's unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this. But from an energy point of view, what I'm seeing is that this is a transitional phase that we're going through. And the life that we've lived before is nothing like what is going to come after. And we all have a choice. Either we sort of look forward to going back to the way things were, or we start to adapt in this phase so that we can actually upgrade ourselves and upgrade our level of existence. The lockdown, I think, has helped us tremendously in reassessing our responsibilities in life and also being able to cut away all of those things that were just frivolous and extras. And I think one of the most greatest blessings of this is the fact that we've been able to have children at home, and being given the option of homeschooling, for example. That has changed the dynamic in the households for most people. Also, on the other side, we've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There was people just before COVID came, they were near self-actualization. They thought they'd just reached that pinnacle of human saintly heights. But suddenly we find ourselves back on the first rung, okay, in survival mode. And that in itself has caused a severe amount of panic, especially amongst, the sort of spiritually enlightened community, because we suddenly found ourselves that, hold on, what is this about? You can't maintain these states. These are phases that we go through. And so what is required from us at this point in time is flexibility, and that we must be malleable. We have to adapt to what the environment is throwing at us on a continuous basis. And so for this time, like Liesl said, was that it's all about choices. We choose what we can control and what we can't. With Afia Healing and our therapists across the globe, we've sort of been pushed into the front line of having to deal with people's fears and anxieties, which are going through the roof. And they just need someone to say, you know what, I'm feeling really bad. And what we're doing with Afia Healing is that we're just offering a 15-minute free consult. Okay, we don't have time to listen to your stories. We don't have a violin to sit there and play as you talk to us. No, we just want to get in there and shift your state, give you the alternative option. What does life look like without fear? And again, we just have to be patient while the storm goes over us. And then when we come out, let's see which way we sort of pan out. So yeah, there's lots of stuff going on, but we just have to stay grounded. That's it.
Lovely. Brother Zahid, I love the fact that you're saying, we want to get to quick action. Yes,
yeah.
is let's look at how do we shift that state.
Yes.
And you're absolutely right. When I have some of the clients that are phoning, a lot of it is that they just want to vent. And we're saying venting is good, but it's not going to get us anywhere. Let's move and shift the state immediately. And if you can do that in 15 minutes, that's absolutely amazing. So we'd like to hear a little bit more about that from an energy perspective. You mentioned that you've got Afia healers that are all over the different places. I know there's quite a few of them in South Africa. I know there's a few all over the world. Do you have any Afia healers that are available here in the UAE?
I think closest to you probably is in Jeddah. So I think we need a few people starting off in the UAE soon, because there is a massive need. So we've got as far as Malaysia, Australia, California, so all the way through New York and everything, UK, Norway, But again, we just need more people that are grounded so that they can help everyone else to ground also.
Good. Thank you very much. So let us move over to our next speaker. I see Sister Sarah is online as well. So as we get her back online, can we maybe hear from Colleen? Colleen, on your side, if you can tell us a little bit about how are you managing to deal with it, but perhaps touch a little bit in terms of the anxiety and stress that is felt in the workplace. Within the business environment, because we see a lot of that coming up lately. How are managers being able to deal with their staff who's, for example, not been able to go into the office, who's not been able to do their jobs, who is having the stress and anxiety of perhaps maybe cutting their salaries? Or, so how are you able to look at it from that perspective with regards to coaching and mentoring within a corporate perspective?
Okay, so thanks for that. From a corporate perspective, every day I have worked with people who've almost lost their meaning and their purpose. When you look at entire sales forces who are now sitting at home, and very successful sales forces, for instance, also with CEOs who know their entire purpose, their entire meaning was defined by the fact that you went out, you made sales, you had grass, you went, and so you've almost got to ask the question is, are you a salesperson without sales? Are you a salesperson if you don't call on customers? And when you have very active, highly motivated people who move all day, to now suddenly sit at home and go, oh, what shall we do today? Okay. What's also happening in your industries is that people have never never worked with us before. They don't know. And so I said, I keep on seeing that we're all sitting at this table that is highly set with different glasses and knives and forks and all this kind of thing. And we keep on thinking, oh, I wonder which knife and fork we start with. And we're looking across to see the person next to us because, oh, maybe they'll know. Meanwhile, they're looking at us to go like, oh, maybe she knows which knife and fork we're going to start with. And so we're trying to mentor each other through it. But in order to mentor, you have to have done it before. You've got to be an expert at it. And this is where coaching comes in as being so important, because you don't have to know or been through the situation in order to coach. What I'm also seeing is that people have been amazed at how they're trying to be frozen. They've gone through the whole grief, the change, and many people are battling with that. And so I have a check-in and chat where you can come along and talk, and people have been amazed at how, oh, they're okay, and then they cry. And they say, but where did that come from? What's wrong with me, you know? And when CEOs suddenly cry, and then they go like, oh, but we're forgetting that this is global trauma, and it is magnified because it's global trauma.
Yes.
And so with that is supporting people in saying, yes, what can we do? But industries have had to work out, okay, so on day one, what am I supposed to do sitting at home? People haven't known. A lot of managers have also gone away from the situation as opposed to into it, saying, let's work it out together. And that level of leadership is not necessarily there. And that's where I've worked of saying, okay, guys, how can this work? What can we do? Would it be able to, you know, and also to understand where are customers in the situation. It's pointless like I must just carry on my job as normal and never mind where you are. So now if you're going to phone, like in healthcare, if you're going to phone a pharmacist, a doctor, whoever, they haven't got time to say, oh, hello, rep, now let's talk to you, or hello, CEO from wherever. So it's been supporting people, understanding that be kind to yourself. You've never been through this before. You've never experienced this. And there are ups and downs. Some days are just brilliant, and other days, you know what? You've got to celebrate that you had a Dwami day.
Yeah.
It's like you managed to like walk to the breakfast kitchen. And so it's about being kind to ourselves, and not almost, there's a lot of emphasis now on what have you learned from here? What have you, you know, what course have you studied? Whatever. Some people have just like, you know what? Most days I got in the shower. And so we can't all do this trauma at the same level, the same way, the same. It's about being unique and allowing yourself to do what you need. And from this, you will emerge the way you need to emerge.
Well done.
And it's just about supporting in business people of let's have more communication, let's be vulnerable, let's cry together if we need to cry together. Because it's about saying that when we come together of, oh, maybe you know what I can do, maybe we can then work together as a team and come back together again as that.
Yeah, I think the important thing that I take away from there is no matter what level you are at in an organization, whether you are a CEO of the company, whether you're the CFO of the company, it doesn't matter. We are emotional human beings at the end of the day. I had a pity party yesterday. So yesterday was our first day of Ramadan, and it's the first day and time that I was away from family, especially that we had a death and a loss in the family in the last 4 weeks. And of course, you're not with family on the first day of Ramadan. You're breaking your fast and you're sitting alone. So yeah, Hawa, who is the CEO of a company in UAE, CEO of a company in South Africa, who's sitting at the top position on different boards, and I had a full pajama day. So yes, I got changed and washed to go and do my prayer, and then after that back into my pajamas, and then just kept doing what I had to do for the day. And of course, last night had a real cry down. And the thing is, how many of us are able to admit that we are human, emotional human beings? So for me, that was extremely important. The question is, what happens, and maybe if I now move on to our next speaker, Sister Sarah, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me, Hawa?
Perfect. Welcome, Sister Sarah. So good to have you back. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ramadan Kareem. I'm so sorry to join late because I guess we have to learn a lot from resilience. And one of the things is I found out for me, more than health, it's technology.
Alhamdulillah.
I just can't get the hang of it because I was so used to people around me doing the technical work for me that now I have at home I have to try and do myself. It's exciting, but then you do face some kind of situations, but it's all for good, Hawa. It's always for good. Well, it's a pleasure to be on this panel discussion, and I've been listening, to all of you talking about resilience and about what to do in this kind of situation that we are in, Hawa. And so I'm very honored to be on your panel discussion. Hawa, thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you. And once again, my sincere apologies. Yes.
No issues. You don't have to. We know we're all in the same boat and we're just working together. And I'm just so glad that you could be here. Sister Sarah, I have just as a very esteemed colleague in terms of the work that you do, but also the very close friend that you are to me, alhamdulillah. And Sister Sarah reminds me of that resilience on a regular basis. She's been through change regularly. I've been through change. And every time I went through a difficult time while I was here in the UAE, in the last 8 years, Sister Sarah would always sit me down and says, Hawa, unless you're going to learn from this experience, means absolutely nothing. So what will you start to do differently? Sister Sarah, what can you talk about here today in terms of, Kaleem just mentioned that people need to be able to learn from it, to be able to move on, and to see it differently, and then to experience and go through the emotions. I like what she actually said is to go through the emotions as and when you need to. But what happens when people can't get over that, where they get stuck in that emotional stress and anxiety? What can you do with your experience that you know in both corporate and in the personal capacity on how do you get people to unstuck themselves from that particular state and move on?
One of the most difficult part of a human is changing the regular habits. We are so stuck up with our regular habits that I think that's what creates more stress for us than anything else, because in the current situation, we can't go and do our regular habits. So we need to learn, to upgrade those regular habits, and come up with different solutions. What we see today, for me, I mean, from a personal point of view, it's like I feel Allah has a stick in His hand, and He's hit us with that stick and telling us, I created you as the most perfect version of all my creation. And look at all the mess you guys have done for the world and for the environment. So, I mean, this is how I personally look at it, from taking care of our health to taking care of nature, to connecting to nature, to connecting to our human fellows. We've forgotten humanity, literally. And this is a big wake-up call. And look at what happened in the last 2 months. More than 400 countries across the world have been affected with one common disease. This is history. There's nothing like this that has ever happened. So we need to wake up. I think we have to go beyond sitting and thinking about our fears anymore and look for solutions to overcome them. We cannot just sit down and be locked down and think we cannot do anything. We can. We absolutely can. From taking care of our body, right up from taking care of our businesses, our families. Can you imagine how before I used to have so many friends who had children. They said, Sarah, we can't wait for the children Saturday or Sunday to happen so children can go to school. Just spending time with their families 2 days used to frustrate them. Now, for the last 2 months, they are sitting with the same families and doing businesses in the same families. I've done panel discussions with people whose children are running around behind and they're getting so annoyed. And I'm telling them, from getting annoyed, can you just laugh and enjoy it? That small shift in your brain. Just that small shift in your brain. You're getting annoyed, right? Just be happy and just laugh. You're talking to me, just laugh and smile. and just enjoy, you know, that child that is running around and making noise in the house, or a maid is coming, or a wife is coming from behind. I said, don't worry, you know, it's okay, it's fine. Be focused on the subject of the matter. Don't worry about your environment. Don't see what's going on in the proximity of your of closer to you. It's okay, it's fine. Just you know, focus on the subject of the matter. So the thing is that, Hawa, you know, we do have ability to thrive in times of change, and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has created us like this. You know, we are a product of change. So why do we go stagnant then? And fear is there to make us look for opportunities to become better. Once you have a fear, you know, don't indulge in it. Try to find a way of how you will overcome your fear. And all our fears are different, but there is one thing we share in common today, which we all have. You know, we have fear of today and we have fear of future. We don't know what's going to happen, because this particular experience is going to change the entire universe. It's going to change our working habits will change, our personal habits will change. We will start looking after our health. We will start looking after the nature. We will start appreciating those little things in life that we just never had a second look at. And I think paying attention to details is the key, Hawa. Taking care of your body is very, very, very important, because that is the key to managing stress. There is no point in I call it catastrophizing, you know, a situation. There is no point in making a bigger drama out of what is really happening, because it's never going to change. You're only going to stress yourself more. So just go back, relax. If you are a spiritual person, you know, you do, you know, your practice of spirituality. If you like to pray to God, to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, you do your prayers. Calm down, you know, bring down the level of your breathing down, because, you know, I do a lot of yogic practice. So you just bring down your level of breathing down, close your eyes, you know, and just go blank. Even if it's just for a few seconds, just go blank. Believe me, Hawa, within the next 5 to 10 minutes, you will come out of your situation and you will know what to do next.
Absolutely.
You
and,
know, we will.
Sarah, yeah. You mentioned a lot of important issues there. One in particular is, you know, that we need to just allow, we need to be comfortable with what is happening. I mean, I've seen people that get very frustrated, like you say, on a webinar when their kids are coming in and coming to interrupt them. How about just taking it in a phase, picking them up, put them on your lap, do the webinar with them on the lap, give them another sheet of paper there with a pen while you are busy. Let this become a natural period, and you find
involve
that the
them, Hawa. Absolutely. Involve them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm talking to you right now. You know, my son can come. You know, he doesn't know that I could have also warned. I have grown up children. I could have already told them that, you know, I'm going to do, but I don't, because I want them. I want that to, because I'm in my home, right?
You in their space.
Yeah, I am in my home space, and I'm in the space of my other family members. So I don't want to set up rules. Let's get out of these set up rules, rigid rules that we had from before, you know, because this is what we had from before. That's why we lost the connection, you know. So let's get rid of this rigid, you know, like, you know, a structure kind of. Let's be resilient. Let's adapt. Let's change. You know, my son can come and ask me a question right now, and I will tell you, Hawa, just excuse me for a minute. I will listen to him, you know, and you know, we will talk whatever needs to be talked, and that's about it. And it has happened to me, and honestly, purposely, Hawa, I don't tell them that I am, because I want to change myself. I used to be that kind of a person, Hawa, you know, when I'm working. So, you know, we do work from home even before this COVID-19. We do work from home. We do have sometimes, calls that we make. Please don't disturb me. Please don't. I've changed that completely.
Yes.
Now I don't say that to them. They can just walk into a room and just ask me any question.
I think that's an amazing concept. Yes.
Just adapt and be resilient.
So I'm going to leave that
change.
open to the audience now. How do you actually feel about that? Yeah. Absolutely. So Omar, I'm going to open up because we have some very good comments. I want to open up to the audience. Obviously, if there's any background sound coming from anyone, then we can always unmute them and then come back again. So Omar, if we can open up to the audience. We have a few comments. Brother Kamran, people are very interested in the book that you mentioned. There was some debate about what the book is. So Talent Digger is the book that Brother Kamran has written himself, but the name of the book he mentioned here today was the book is Man Searching for Meaning. Is that correct? By Viktor Franklin, right? Thank you, Andre, for commenting on that. Brother Nizar, thank you. It's an honor to have you here today. There are a few comments and queries. So I'm not sure if this is a query or comment, Nizar. Meaning for me of crisis is a challenge that I must carry it with my whole life, make my habit, get it as a routine matter, and focus on my goals. So yes, absolutely what the people are saying. Nazira is talking about a positive mindset. Amika is talking about holistically we need to just feed our body, but also what we choose, what to feed our mind and soul. Lots of people to believe in terms of eating regularly. So Loretta, I think she talks a lot to what you're talking about, and Sister Sarah, in terms of what you're actually feeding your body with. Shanta is talking about, and I think she's talking to Brother Zuhair in terms of let's vent with a purpose. So if there are going to be any venting, there has to be a purpose behind why you're venting. In other words, getting to a solution. Like Sister Sarah is saying, let's get to an actual solution. Shanta is talking about a brilliant table, example by Colleen, good. All right, so I'm going to open the lines, so reading all of these comments. Are there any questions at the moment for your panelists? So people, I'd like it to be as interactive as possible. Your sounds are, your speakers are unmuted at the moment. So please, if you'd like to have a question, unmute yourself and we can then ask that question. So anyone with any questions?
Am I audible, Hawa?
Yes, you are. We can now hear you.
Okay, so am I now audible? This is directed to Kamran Siddiqui. Sir, you work for Gulf News, right? I've lived in the country since 2012 and now back in South Africa. Do you not attribute the type of news that Gulf News shares, do you not attribute that to responsible governance by the UAE government? They've got proper rules in place with regard to media and that kind of thing. So don't you think that government is playing a very important role in what goes to society? Don't you think it's the responsible role that they are playing as well? You know, I still read the Gulf News online.
That's a very important question coming there.
Responsible governance.
Yeah. So, Brother Cameron, any response to that?
Okay. Thank you very much for asking this question. I think I can hear some background noise over there. Yeah,
Okay,
thank you so
Cameron,
much.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for asking this question. First of all, I would like to highlight my capacity in which I write. Actually, I'm just been writing in a freelance capacity with the newspaper, and that was quite a little bit, some time now. I'm not any further into it, but the whole idea for me in that scenario was that I understand that all the media, including the newspaper, is an opportunity. Is an opportunity that whether we had a very limited space available over there as well, what type of message, what type of positivity we can contribute back to the society. So I always focus onto that. Honestly, I do not have any comment onto that part. What is the overall, I mean to say, the strategy for the Gulf News, what they have been doing, and what is exactly the government has been taking care of that, and whether it's a socially responsible sort of stuff. For me, the most important part is that within my capacity possible, within my area of control, what is my sense of contribution, which I've been contributing back to that. So I'm quite happy with that. And this is always my focus area. And I would say that when you control the things which are within your domain, you actually started exerting your influence around. And by virtue of that space which I was having under my column in expert advice, I think that column was having a limitation of 300 words max. And but over the years, it has reached to hundreds and thousands of people. And when I get a feedback that people are getting, it was a versatile messages which I try to share through my forum over there. I think I contributed my part with due regard with all the policies and with all the things around. I just contributed my part over there, and this is my stance always, that I look into my area where I can contribute, irrespective what is the overall scenario, what is overall strategies or the policies over there.
Good. Thank you. I trust, Shanta, that puts some light onto it. So, Joshna, I believe you have a question. I'm going to just unmute you as well. So Joshna has a comment or a question. So Joshna, you're unmuted. You're welcome to ask it. Joshna? Hi, Joshna, we can hear you. Okay, so while Joshna is getting her sound okay, are there any other questions that anybody would like to answer? I've got you all unmuted at the moment. If you want to unmute yourself again, you're welcome to do so. We have even a say from a lovely dog in the background who's barking away and in agreement with what we are doing here. So is there anyone else who has any questions before we move on? Joshna, you are unmuted. If you can just check on that. Okay, not there. No, Josh, we can't hear you. You're definitely unmuted from my side. So if you want to just check on that. In the meantime, while Joshna is coming up, Josh, as soon as you can come up on, we'll take your question. Is the question that I'd like to now ask is, we touched a little bit, I mean, Sister Sarah touched a little bit about the children coming in. How are we building resilience in our kids amidst this pandemic? I've had a few people who phoned in to say, Hawa, you know what, our kids are struggling. What can we do to assist the children during this particular pandemic? How do we guide them? What do we say to them? How do we manage their stress? So what exactly can we actually do with regards to that? Armal, while we're taking that question from all of the speakers, if you can just check with Joshna, she is saying that she's having a problem with the sound, if you can check on her for me. So the rest of the speakers, if we can actually now start with you in terms of how are we building, what do you recommend to build resilience in your children amidst this pandemic? We our own stresses and our own fear. Brother Zohair, if I can ask for you to start off on this, to tell us a little bit of in terms of the energy that the kids are feeling at the moment, and what can we do to help them ease that at this stage?
The two basic needs of a child is love and security. And if a child doesn't get that from its parents, it'll seek it out from anywhere else. And unfortunately, that is what, that's how grooming happens. So the most important thing, especially in this time, is to really connect with your children. You've been thrown in with your kids and you're stuck with your kids. It's there for a reason. It's to re-establish those bonds and links with them so that you can connect at a deeper level. My children, my eldest is 11, the younger one is almost 10. And they're at that vulnerable age where everything is like why, but, and what, and now, and we have very open discussions with them. And I think this is very important, is that you have open lines of communication with them. And every now and again, I'll find, my wife speaking to them and saying, guys, are you okay? Is anything worrying you? Are you scared of this? And subhanAllah, there's such a difference in the two of my kids. My eldest son is like, yeah, but if we're going to get sick, we'll get sick. If we're going to die, we're going to die. So what? And if we die, we shaheed, isn't it? And he's got a totally different, wacky understanding of how life is. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And alhamdulillah, that's nice. And on the other side, I think my daughter's a little more softer, she's more gentle, and she's a little bit concerned, but fears are allayed because we don't allow, children mimic adult behavior. And if we are going to be, just like all over the place and really spread thinly in ourselves, it doesn't give them enough grounding. Because what we've done for them is we've created a safe environment. In the house, you are safe, and that's all they need. And for the time being, and we've switched off the news channels, so we don't have to keep counting how many people are dying. And that's it. It's just let's focus on other things. Let's focus on your schoolwork that's going to upset them more and things like that. Instead of going into, there's COVID and it's killing people. at the end of the day, we need to take precautions. They need to be taught responsibilities. And I think having open lines of communication really helps, and it grounds them, it secures them, and just speak with them, spend time with them.
Okay, good. Colleen, from your side, what would you say, in terms of dealing with that? Brother Zuhair mentioned a few important things. Communication is extremely important to them, and one of the core focus areas that you focus on is that communication model that you apply both to a corporate and of course in a home environment. What would you say is being communicated at the moment, and how can we better at our communication with our children at this stage?
Okay, so I've worked a lot with teachers and also parents, and obviously teachers who are parents, and children, and I totally agree that it's about increasing that communication. Now's the time to sit down, but it's very important to be honest, because when you say, oh, you're a child and you don't need to know anything about this, you're actually lying to your children, who are going to find out about it through Liesel's news channel. And yes, Liesel. And it is, so it's very important about being realistic. But now maybe it's the time to talk about death, to talk about what it means to eat properly, to not be able to go to a funeral, or and so I think it's an opportunity for parents to talk about lots of things that wouldn't normally be spoken about. But exactly as Shanta said in the comments, it's also saying, what is scaring you? Why is it scaring you? Not to just say, oh no, we're all fine and it'll all just go away. It's an amazing opportunity to get closer to your children. I'm also sharing a picture the other day of saying, this homeschooling story where we all sit around the table and we're all happy families, Walt Disney. No, it does not exist. But there's also massive pressure on parents who they don't know how to teach, and then teachers are also saying that they like giving too much work, too much thing. And it is really a chance to say, okay, let's make cupcakes and learn geometry through making cupcakes, as opposed to sitting there drawing shapes and doing stuff. So a lot of high school teachers are saying as well, it's rather find different ways to teach it, because there's so many other things that we can be learning and taking on during this period.
True.
The communication is key.
Well done. And when we talk about communication, there's a comment here by Faiza Khalil that I think is going to be incorporated into this particular discussion, that we're talking about children, because it's not just about kids, it's also about the corporate environment. And she's saying that controlling things and, communicating things which are under your control is a great point, because it is under your control. But dealing with people is quite tricky, including dealing with, of course, in our cases, dealing at the moment with children. So how do you actually convince, either in her question, how do you convince the team or employees to change? And if I could ask that question in relation to the children as well. So it's not just convincing your team and your audience, but also convincing your children to be able to change a mindset. If we can tackle that question from your perspective, Brother Kamran, and then we can go to Dr. Loretta.
Thank you very much, Hawa. Basically, there's a very interesting phenomena whenever we talk about that, building a relationship. I always have a simple mantra. I say that in simple terms, whether you apply in the corporate world or you apply in your personal relationship, it's always in four words. First connect, then correct. I repeat, first connect, then correct. The most important part is that when we have been spending time, if we had a better connection with our colleagues, if we had a better connection within a family, we had a better influence what we can exert onto them. So I think when we are being back at home and we are doing a work, this is also an opportunity for us to build up that strong connection, first of all, with our family. Because in our daily routine might be we are being so much occupied with our business and all the other stuff that we are not having that amount of time to spend with them. So some of the practice, as I said, that because we have been at home, so if I share some of the thing, I'm still being very much personally convinced that kids are not going to influence by my speech. They are going to be influenced by the actions and what type of character I'm been reflecting right now in front of them. They are always being all around. They are listening to what I'm doing. They are listening to what I'm doing right now. They are listening to what I'm saying right now. So I think, first of all, it's an opportunity for us to be a role model for our kids. That's the most important thing. Secondly, to build up a connection. And the connection, I always say, in relationship, it always happen with the investment of time. So when we differentiate, we say in our personal life, that's the quantity of time that build up the bond. And in the professional environment is the quality of time that matters. So for example, now we have been here. So how much time we have actually scheduled in our calendar or in our daily routine where we are spending time with our kids. That's most important part right now, is to give them an opportunity that they feel heard. Because the challenge is that majority of the time, I feel that being as a parent, we are always on the side where we are being always telling them something. But now this is an opportunity where we can create a window of opportunity to listen to them as well. So I adopted one practice which I've been doing, alhamdulillah, since the time it's almost a month. So with my kids, I have scheduled a time, and it's early in the morning, in the middle of the day. We started playing games together. So we are playing the games, and there are some of the games, honestly, when I was been playing, my wife came to me and she said, I was not aware you love that game so much. And my answer was very clear. I said, no, maybe I do not love that game, but I love my kid. That's the thing. So important aspect is that what efforts we are being putting right now in establishing that bond, that establish the communication, and we listen to them, and we also bring them a reality part as well. One of the things what I have done since the time this challenge has been happened, I'm very firmly believe on that transparency and honesty. I bring a real challenge in front of my family, including the kids, and I let them know that this is a scenario we have been going through, and we have this belief, and these are the things in our control, and this is what we can do the max. And if God forbid worse come worse happen, that might be the scenario, but we are still have the opportunity. We are going to, and actually I asked my kids, and involving myself as well, I said, whenever we have the prayer, please made it as a part of your dua every time. Ask for that help, because it's everything is in the hand of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I would say that alhamdulillah, that is the thing which has grounded ourselves. We are having a very limited exposure to the media as well. My kids are also not being that much into it. They have their own occupancy. So the planned occupancy is the name of the game, how we are going to schedule our day, how we are putting a slot for establishing that relationship with our kids and family, and being transparent is actually the communication channel. And over the last one, I think I'm getting that positivity.
Well done. I think there's some excellent tips there, and I like the check in terms of connect before we actually try and correct. As parents, we are so quick, and not just parents, but teachers as well, is that we just want to correct the way our kids function. And the question that came earlier about staff members, we also want to correct the way our staff is performing and what they're actually busy doing at the moment. But what we're forgetting to do is, how do we actually rather connect first? Because when you connect first, it's easier then to correct behavior. Loretta, from your perspective with regards to the children, and there are a few questions that I want to address now to the group, but before we get to them, your perspective in terms of a health perspective, a physical health perspective with regards to children, what would you recommend to get the children to be able to deal with their emotions, but also to prepare them from a healthy perspective as well?
Well, Hawa, my daughter's 20 now, so I don't have little children, but what I've certainly seen in my practice is that I would very often get the scenario where the mom brings the young child, sort of 4 or 5 years old maybe, and then when I explain what's actually going on and why we have to do what we have to do in terms of, let's say, changing a diet, removing a favorite food, the mom has a lot of anxiety, but the children really seem to get it. And so when you explain clearly why certain things have to happen and then give them a choice, they actually feel like they're empowered in making that decision, rather than just actually telling them, you really need to eat your vegetables because otherwise you're going to get sick. I also I studied in a form of energy medicine called Jinshin Jitsu, which is a Japanese traditional healing system. And in Jinshin Jitsu, all the organs and the emotions associated with the organs are reflected on the fingers. So that's a really easy tool and technique to show children, So when you're really scared, this is the scared finger, right? And then this is the one they hold. This is the cross finger, this is the one you hold. If you're sad, this is the sad finger. So when you give them simple things that enable them to empower themselves, they feel like they're taking part in their health and they have a decision. you know, they're a co-creator in that process. So it's a bit like speaking to someone in business. You know, if they're not, if a member of your team isn't engaging, you can't actually get the result. So everything that everyone has said, the connection is important. And once you make that connection, when you then give them a tool or a technique, that empowers them. I also teach children to breathe, you know, short in through your nose, long, slow out through your mouth or your nose. When you do that, you start calming down, so that they know that if they're scared or if they're sad, they can come to the adult who will hold the space for them, but they can also help themselves. And that's essential. And
can you give us an example of that breathing for those parents that are really struggling? And I see Nasira is actually also talking about her millennials as well. So can you give a very quick example of how to utilize a breathing technique where a parent can actually use that for their children?
Sure, it's really, really simple. You take a normal inhalation through your nose, and you have a long, slow, controlled exhalation. So it would be, and what that does is it actually, your inhalation activates your sympathetic nervous system, which is attention and alertness, and your exhalation activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is relaxation. So when you have a normal inhalation, your sympathetic is activated, but you have a long, slow exhalation, it activates your relaxation response. It's so simple. We can all do it together as a family. That's also a connection activity, and at 2 or 3 minutes. And everyone is actually connected to one another. We're all in our parasympathetic, so we can all actually listen and we can experience. And then it's also a tool to say, you know, I'm also anxious. When I'm anxious, this is what I do. So if you're feeling anxious, let's do this together right now.
Absolutely. So Dr. Loretta, you touched on a point which I'm going to allow us then to move over to Sister Sarah just before I come to Liesel. Sister Sarah, you do a lot of in terms of breathing techniques and working people to be able to also relax and get them into a state. Particularly when we're dealing with, if I look at Nasira's question, is how do you deal with millennials? They're thinking and being on their phone all the time, every now and again, and they have to be in the company of their family. What techniques can you help parents to be able to get that engagement with their children? Now's the time, I mean, especially with parents building relationships with children at the moment. That hasn't been happening before, and now COVID is forcing us to do that, but yet technology is still pulling them away. What would you recommend, Sister Sarah, in terms of how do we manage that in our homes? Sister Sarah, just checking that you're there. Armel, if you can just make sure that Sister Sarah is definitely unmuted. Okay, while we're waiting for Sister Sarah to join us, just to get her unmuting going. Sister Sarah, are you there? No? Okay, Liesel, let's go to you first while we're waiting for Sister Sarah.
I think our role as parents is to contextualize the world for us, because children are children for such a short time. And I see there's a comment there from Shanta saying that in some cultures, children should be seen and not heard. And I think many of us were raised that way. It has changed irrevocably, and I think after we emerge into this new world that COVID-19 is forcing us to step into, that kind of approach towards children is going to go out the window. Our job as parents is to contextualize the world for our kids and to be absolutely honest, while keeping it age appropriate. I have absolutely no holy cows with my children. We discuss everything and anything absolutely openly. We bring as much humor into it as possible. But I always say, I don't raise children. I am guiding someone's future father and someone's future husband to step into his own power. And that is where that personal responsibility is coming in. We need to model to our kids how to take responsibility. Yes, they do not have all the tools and equipment and the mental wherewithal that we have to deal with things in a more mature way, but that is our role, to guide them and to show to them. How you said you had a little pajama day yesterday. Everybody has a bad day, and then we as parents very often, when our children are having a bad day, try to correct them. because we don't want to see that kind of behavior. If I, as a parent, have a bad day, why would I not allow my child that same grace? So I think communication, connection, and guiding and contextualizing. Our children know what is going on. Even if they have no media exposure, they sense our emotions. Children are amazing in that way because they don't have all the filters that we have. They don't have all the conditioning yet. They are very perceptive in picking up on their parents' emotions. So don't deny that you are having a bad day. Tell your child, listen, honey, today is not a good day for me. Tomorrow will be better. And allow them to have their breakdowns too. I am sitting at the moment with a matric child who's having anxiety attacks because his future vision has crumbled and he's struggling to come to terms with that. So what we can do, what I do, is physical touch, breathing, talking, and allowing him to express. Karim, I think it was you that said we want to tell them the whole time, but we very seldom listen to our children. Allow them to express. They have as much right as we do.
Absolutely. And I think it brings me to what empathy actually is. Empathy is first, when a child actually comes in and talks to you about, Mom, I'm really struggling with the study, or I'm really doing that, is we so quick to want to fix. Instead of that, we need to start naming the emotion first. And naming the emotion is read between the lines and identifying exactly what emotion is that child actually going through. So very well said. Sister Sarah, do we have you back again before I take a question from Irfan? Irfan has a question. Sister Sarah, just to check that you are back.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening. Can you hear me?
Okay, good.
Yeah,
So
I was here all the time. Yeah.
Good, Alhamdulillah. Now we can hear you back. So, Sarah, from your perspective, with regards to, before I take a question from Irfan, with regards to breathing techniques and dealing with our children, what can you advise in terms of dealing with their issues that they are going through at the moment?
Hawa, we need to see children that are like babies up to the age of 3 behave differently. Children who are between the age of 3 up to 7 behave differently, and the children who are teenagers, and then you have young adults. So all these categories, require different ways of dealing with it. Now, for example, I have young men in my house. My eldest son is 24 years old and my youngest son is 22 years old. So when all these situations started, they were very excited about it. They had more information about it than me, and believe me, Howard, they would go out. It is a lockdown. They would go out. They said, we are wearing our mask, we are wearing our hands. And, I couldn't, in the beginning, I was upset with them. But then you remember I was telling you how you adapt to change. I said, fine, Sarah, they're young adults. If they don't listen, they will have to learn. Now, whether that learning can be harsh, they will have to live up to it, but you make them aware of that. That's fine. You want to go out at this time. You want to do what you want to do. You want to, defy the regulation, because you are dealing with the children at that age, they want to defy because they're so curious. They want, it's not in a bad way. They're curious. Their curious minds drives them to take those bold actions. But some of my sister's children, for example, some of them, they wouldn't. They would stay. They are staying in the house, and they are so paranoid. And I had my children. They were not. They said, nothing is going to happen. We know how to take care of ourselves. And I give them benefit of doubt. I didn't like it, but I that's how, that was the best way I felt to deal with them. For the time being, they did that. Then they stopped themselves. Okay. They were at home and they were doing their things. They work on the computers because both of them are working. They work on the computers. They are talking to their friends, and they started, having a conversation with me because I became completely silenced. I wasn't having any conversation with them, and it was my way, my strategy of how to draw attention to the situation and how serious the situation is. So every household, Hawa, will have a different experience with young adults, with teenagers, and I have friends who are having great difficulty with their teenage children because they were not listening at all, and they were creating a lot of issues in the house. So I told them, I think the issue is with you guys. It's not with the children. Children are children. It's what they said, we need to find a way, to get closer to them. And one of the panelists also spoke about love, spoke about paying attention, playing games with them. Why don't you move from your space into their space and try to be with them rather than try to be against them? So each child in the house will have a different habit, right? And our habits are based on our upbringing and how we have raised our children, and how before COVID-19 our children's lifestyle were. So you don't expect them, they are resilient and they are adaptive, but you need to give them their time depending on their age. And then I had friends, I listened to some friends in one panel discussion where they had, young children between the age of 3 to 10. And they are so used to being taken out and playing out. Now some of the households are blessed to have a garden, so they are doing things out in the garden, but some of the house people are living in apartments. So people who live in apartments, they face even more, because in an apartment you can't just go out directly. You're not allowed to go out directly. You need to stay in the house. So a parent has to think from morning till evening how to entertain those young children. So each one of the age group, Hawa, has its own different strategy.
Absolutely.
And like I said, we as much as we want to control our children, sometimes we have to allow our children to control us, and sometimes we have to listen to them, because they are also going through some emotional things which we understand, which they don't understand. So we have to, there is this. And then as far as breathing is concerned, I think one of the panelists already gave a breathing technique, because that's a brilliant way of breathing, especially for the ones who are not used to practicing. And somebody spoke about touching. Yes, so you can, sort of, help them out, do some exercise with them, put some music on, jump with them, it doesn't matter. I bought a skipping rope, so in the house I'm skipping, and they're looking at me now. They're also started skipping, for example. There are many things we can do inside the house, Hawa.
So what we're actually talking about is doing what we want our kids to do, and if we basically become the change, they would actually follow through on that change, like you did. You said, okay, fine, this is what I'd like, but now that you want to do what you want to do, is give them the learning opportunities. And I think for me, very importantly in this whole thing, and also based on what one of the audience have asked a question was, in terms of the generational gap that we're having and how do you deal with it, we have to enter their world. I think all the panelists here have mentioned that, is that have we as parents been able to enter the world of another generation? It's quick and easy for us to say, well, our world is supreme and our world is the best world, because we, that perfect saying is, in our days we never did this, as if in our days it was the best thing ever. Have we ever entered their days and entered their world? So you're absolutely right. Irfan, I just want to check if you are unmuted. I've unmuted you from my side. You had a question that you're urgently wanting to ask. You are unmuted. If you can just unmute on your side, and then you can ask that question. Joshna, just checking if you sorted out your sound. Otherwise, you're welcome to ask the question in the chat, and then we can take it from there. Irfan, I have sent you an unmute request. There we go. So is Irfan online? Joshna, are you online? Okay, for some reason we can't hear the sound from Irfan. Are there any other questions before I move on? I see you're having all some great discussions there.
Hello?
Yes, is that Irfan?
May you listen me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Actually, I want to ask how we can save our children from the side effect of cell phone They use the cell phone all the times, and they remain happy while using the cell phone instead of spending time with the parents or spending time with the family members. Would you please like to answer this question?
Okay, so from the panelists, who would like to go with it first?
I would like to ask this question from Mr. Kamran Siddiqui.
Okay, Mr. Kamran, the question
Right.
directed to you first.
Okay, thank you very much, Irfan, for asking such an important question. As I've highlighted, as far as our observation is concerned, as I mentioned, that kids get impressed or get engaged with the role model behavior. Before I ask them that how much time they are going to spend with their mobile phone, I would ask or reverse that question to the parents first of all. How much they themselves are spending that time with the mobile phones. That's very important, because as I mentioned, that when you are being at that certain environment, you get influenced with that environment, what has been happening. I give you another interesting story that and what it happened, and it was never happened from my side intentionally, but it get impacted. I would say that's a good habit in a sense that I try to spend my time with reading books. And in my car, whenever I travel, I always have some of the books always inside the car as well. Whenever I had a time, I stay inside the parking area. My wife knows that I'm going to spend some time reading that. I have found that pattern that unconsciously, when my kids started traveling with me, they started picking up the books along with them. So I've not asked them why you're picking that books along with you. So they actually get conditioned with the thing when they have seen their father, what they have been doing. Secondly, whenever we go to the mall, it is my ritual that the first shop I go into is the bookshop. So after a certain period of time, I've observed without saying any word from my side, whenever we had a choice to make, my kids already know, all right, let's go to the bookstore. So I would say, being as a parent, I highlight that, I underline, I make a bold statement. Please, before expecting anything, look into your own behaviors, look into your own habits, look into your own pattern, because subconsciously that is the same pattern which is going to ingrained in their mind, in their behavior. So if you want that they should get rid of that, first of all, condition yourself, get rid of that stuff, try to spend some time, create a bond with your kids. So for example, when I'm getting a time, I started playing inside. We had a little bit of space available, so I started playing cricket every day with my kid. It's a softball, so we can enjoy together. So when we are spending that time, practically this is a time which I'm taking that option from him as well, to sit in front of media or to go with that mobile phone as well. So what opportunities we are creating, that is my point of view. So in a nutshell, I would say, before expecting anything from your kids, please look into your own behaviors and patterns. If you will change something over there, it is going to be effective over there. But if you will just want to just tell them something, maybe they will obey in front of you, but they will not take it as a habit. So that is my take on this. I hope I've answered your question.
I think I didn't unmute myself there for a moment. So yes, how many of us are looking at ourselves? Very good advice is, what are you doing? What are you mimicking in your actual home? And even if you are not busy with the cell phones, have you got into the head of connecting with that child first before we actually reprimand by taking away the mobile phones, by taking away all of that? And that connectivity comes back there as well. Are there any other panelists who would like to comment on that before we move on to our final question to all of the panelists? Are there anyone else would like to add to what Brother Kamran has said on regards to the question with regards to social media and phones with the kids? Anyone else? Good. All right, so I just need to make sure, and we'll just make sure that all our panel speakers are unmuted, or you can unmute yourself as well as panel speakers as well. Armo, will you please just make sure that all the panel speakers are unmuted? All right, on to our last question that we want to ask for the day here, and this is a rapid fire question. So a rapid fire question is going to go around to each of you very quickly on each of the topics that we want to cover here today. And what I'd like to look at specifically is, for example, what, in your opinion, for example, number one, firstly, do you think life will be the same after this COVID COVID-19? Firstly, so just a quick rapid fire, yes, and why do you think? But very short in terms of the rapid fire question. So shall we go first with Liesel? Can we start with you? Do you think life will be the same? You are unmuted, Liesel. Armo, can you please? Okay, there we go. We have you back, Liesel. Armo, can you please make sure that only the audience is unmuted and the speakers, audience is muted and the speakers is unmuted. Thank you. Thank you, Liesel. You're back online.
So I don't think the world is ever going to go back to the way it was before we hit the standstill. I pray that we never go back to that place, because we knew that the way we were managing this planet, the way we were abusing the resources was untenable and unsustainable. We knew that. We didn't want to change. So I think God, Mother Nature stepped in and forced us to change. Just like the lockdown, if we lifted the lockdown right now, we undo the past 4 weeks that we in South Africa have been in lockdown. If we go back to the way we were before COVID-19, we would have undone all the learnings we had in these past few weeks.
Good. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Colleen, can we go with you?
Am I unmuted? Yes, I am.
Yes.
Okay. Categorically, there is no going back. We have to go forward. I think it is quite exciting that companies have got to go and disinfect and change and go and clean. So it's almost like they're preparing a space for the new way of doing things. What you take from the past and put into the future is totally up to different organizations. But I am hoping that we learn from this and we learn to be more connected, more caring, more loving. And yeah, it's going to be exciting to see.
Okay, fantastic. All right, Loretta?
I would like to think that it's not going to be the same. I think it's going to be different to the extent that we change. So it depends on how much has happened within us during this time. And that's what the world is going to reflect to us when we get out there again.
Absolutely, good. Brother Zuhair?
Yep, I think I reflect what all the other panelists are saying as well. And again, it's the choice. It depends on how we actually form ourselves in this chrysalis. You know, do we come out as butterflies or do we just perish in the hope that we go back to the life that we once had? So stay flexible and just grow yourself and see what happens when we come out of it.
Great, and become innovative, absolutely. Sister Sarah?
I don't believe we will ever go back to what we used to be before. COVID-19, you know, is here to stay. This disease is not going to disappear. We will still have to go out and be cautious. We still have to wear our masks. We still have to take precautions. So our lives is really going to go on an exponential change. And we have seen what 2 months have done to us and how resilient we have become. And we are going to face, you know, like I like to call a COVID-19 era, you know. So the universe has changed because you know, the lessons we have learned in order to sustain itself, you know, there has to be a catalyst out there to ensure that we have accepted and embraced that change, and we have improved our ways of living and our ways of doing things.
Absolutely, good, absolutely. Some good pointers there, and we'll be emailing all of you with some of those points as well. Have I missed any of the speakers? Brother Kamran, for you.
Yeah. Interestingly, I've read somewhere that is a very interesting statement. It says that people do not resist change; they resist to be changed. That's a very interesting thing. So, what I would say that the nature has actually enforced that change, and the world is not going to be the same. And there are some of the reflection, what I would say, the post-COVID world, we might have that element of that surveillance, which is right now it's going ahead, is going to be a permanent part. It is going to be enhanced further because that COVID-19 is going to stay for a certain period of time till the time they are going to ensure. So that surveillance is going to stay. Number two, I think that has the beautiful part happened, like the way right now we are being sitting in the different part of the world and we are being together talking about some of the common issue. I think that has also changed in a sense that the way we're going to interact and to work collaboratively more in the future as well. Because on the one side where the physical movement has been restricted, I think that has opened up another window for us to collaborate on different things. So world is going to transform into a real sense a global village where this is not my issue, this is not the other issue, this is our common issue. So I think there's a lot of other positivity. It has just been a matter of mentally preparing ourselves for the changes which is on the way. And if we are being, as I mentioned again, coming back to the first point, if I assigned a meaning to that this is going to be a positive thing for us, this is going to redefine in certain new areas, this is the way in which we are going to collaborate in a better way, I think we are going to attract that in our life. This is the way the change is going to be positive, inshallah.
Good, absolutely, inshallah. Some amazing points, and as I mentioned, all these will be copied into an email to all of you as well, so you can look at that, reflect, and take from it what you would like to be able to apply into your life. Another last rapid fire question, but before I do, I'd just like to open up the lines because we just got about 10 more minutes before we close off, so let's give the audience a chance. I'm going to unmute the audience at the moment. Armul, will you just keep an eye to see where there are some huge disturbances, and then you can always mute it again. So for now, I'm busy unmuting everyone at the moment. If there are any questions, please unmute yourself. We've unmuted you from our side, and we've got the last 10 minutes. Here's your chance to ask the panelists any questions that you would like to have. I see lots of chat discussions happening. I'll also copy that chat discussions and send it through to all of you via an email that you'll get after this session. Questions from the audience? Any questions? Comments? Oh, there we go. We have a sound of a little young one in the background. No questions, no comments yet. Okay, good. So then let me ask my final question to the audience. And again, I mean, to the panelists. So the rapid fire question is, firstly, rapid fire suggestions based on the following areas. What would you suggest for improving and developing relationships in this period of COVID? A rapid fire question to each of the panelists. So if we can this time start with Sister Sarah, how would we actually improve relationships in this period and post-COVID? One of the big problems I'm having is a lot of people are coming up and saying that either their relationships are just getting worse because of too much of time spent with each other, and I'm talking of physical relationships in the home, or alternatively, it's getting better for some. What would be your suggestion, Sister Sarah?
I think the relationship should be getting better. It shouldn't be getting worse. And if it is getting worse, is because the individuals themselves are not being resilient to change. They still want to maintain their old habits. You remember I spoke about old habits. So
Yes.
they need to understand. We need to start living in a house where we listen to each other rather than tell each other. You know, we need to listen, because you have to understand the other person's point of view, the other person's feeling, and you know, compare to you and find a common ground. There's always a common ground, always, when we are listening to each other rather than telling off each other.
Well done, well done. Great advice there, Sister Sarah. Thank you very much. So it's listening to people, and also notice that you're not in the same environment, so habits need to change. Brother Zohair, from your perspective, what advice would you give for relationships to either improve it or to be able to look at those relationships that have already been improved but are actually getting worse?
I think it's very different for different people, and you know, with the increase in domestic violence in a lot of homes, unfortunately, and we're having to deal with that also. So it's generic advice is fine, you know, do better, but I think every person in their own environment needs to make that judgment to see exactly how they move forward. And I am very much of the, you know, of the opinion that if things are not working out, then, you know, it's time to start building those boundaries, setting those boundaries in place. If things don't work out, then, you know, move, you're not a tree. So hopefully, I think everyone has to balance it. But yes, like Sister Sarah just mentioned, extremely important that this is a chance to reunite hearts, and hearts are melting and hearts are softer now, and families are coming back together. And if we really can't get on with people, then that also has to be accepted, that we don't get along with these people, and so be it. Just smile and wave.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
Shanta says it very nicely. She says, Zuhair, I totally agree, move, because you're not a tree. So for those of you that basically are struggling in relationships, I agree 100%. Here's a time maybe for you to really, maybe it was COVID that needed to make you realize that there is a possibility of a different life. So absolutely. Thank you very much. Colleen, shall we go with you?
Yeah, so I like the flexibility. I think also conversation, exactly as Shanta said in the comments, we weren't fairy tale Disney families in the beginning. I know in my family, I have an adult family, but we have established rules and what we need to do and also what works for us. I think too often we get caught up in what it should be. We should be the Disney family, and no, there's no should in it at all. So my family, for instance, we've got 3 separate offices on the opposite ends of the home so that we don't kill each other. And we don't do breakfast, lunch, or tea together. We only meet at 6 o'clock at night, and it works. And other people say, oh no, but you should have tea together. No, what works in your home, not what works in other homes.
Lovely. Good. So let it work in your home. And if you hear what other people are doing, don't try and take that and say, hey, listen, my neighbor is doing this, my friend is doing that. It places unnecessary pressure. Let's look at what works for you in your particular home. Absolutely correct. Thank you, Colleen. Loretta.
Well, I had a teacher who once said that relationships weren't there to make us happy, they're there to help us grow. So I think if we bear that in mind, then we can actually take that growth on board. And also remember that people are always mirroring your disowned parts to you. So my advice to people is to connect with yourself, because the more you can connect with yourself and the more you can integrate your disowned parts, your light and your darkness, the more accepting you will be of others and the more deeply you can actually connect to others.
Absolutely. So Kamran?
Yes, I think when we talk about relationship and the wider scope of that relationship, whether we talk about in family, whether we talk about our colleagues, whether we talk about our friends and family, whatsoever, I have a very simple formula, and this just based on 3 fundamental things. And this is a thing which I have not only experienced myself, rather I've seen all the successful and happy people in their family and their professional life. They are experimenting, they're experiencing with them, and they're getting a phenomenal results. My simple formula is that all the relationships are based on 3 fundamental things. Number 1 is a mutual, is a trust, is the trust and honesty. That is the number 1 thing. Number 2, it is on the mutual self-respect. How much respect we are carrying during that relationship. Number 3, which is the most important part, is the forgiveness part. So I repeat, trust, mutual respect, and forgiveness. Why I'm been highlighting this thing? Because right now we are also going through a different phase in our life as well. We are being forced to stay at home, especially, first of all, our families are not accustomed to that as well. They have not, the majority of the time, my kids and my family, my wife has seen me outside. Now, this is the time we have been here. Now, there are a lot of things which might not be happening as per my way of seeing the things, my way of doing the thing. How much element of mutual self-respect I carry, how much, what you can say, tolerance I've been carrying, how much an element of forgiveness I've been carrying, and on top of it, how much conscious effort I'm been spending right now towards spending the time in forging that relationship. So, for example, there are a long list of my colleagues and friends which I've not been able to touch upon over the last few months because of my so-called occupancy in my work and job. Now, if I made a schedule every day, and if I'm been touching upon and talking to some of my friends and families and colleagues and relatives, just with the thought and asking them with a simple question, how the things are doing at your end? How's the thing? Is there anything I can do for you? Is there anything I can contribute onto that part? So I would say, if we are successful in relationship, then the rest of the success comes into our life. If we say that we are having a total disaster at that end, in my opinion, it would be an illusion of success for us, but it cannot be a real success. So please, all of my listeners, all of my colleagues who have been here, the trust part, the forgiveness part, and mutual self-respect is the name of the game.
Lovely.
Oh.
So trust, mutual respect, and of course forgiveness. And if I could add a fourth one there, and that is gratitude. If we can add gratitude to it as well, and I think Liesl, you speak a lot about gratitude on your side as well. So Liesl, your final remarks in terms of building relationships here.
Hawa, I cannot agree with my fellow panelists anymore. Loretta, yes, it starts with self. Colleen, you know, would have, should have, could have. There's no shoulds. We are forging our own new way in this new world we are entering. But Kamran, to agree with what you are saying, I would like to highlight the 4 graces. And that is contrition. We all make mistakes, and taking responsibility for that and admitting it and saying, yes, I have made a mistake, I am sorry. Then the forgiveness part. Forgive yourself, have grace, forgive others. Then gratitude. And the 4 graces tie in so beautifully with the practice of Ho'oponopono. So gratitude, and then the ultimate answer. You know, Hawa, when you asked that question, the first thing that came to my mind is ultimately the answer to everything is love, and not the emotion, the divine love that we all get to experience now, that we have to be still and quiet, that we are being forced to take time out. And
Absolutely.
so the 4 graces for me is the answer, and ultimately the answer is love.
Thank you, Liesl. That's very, very interesting. So people, we're on the dot of 1 minute to 12. I've just got a minute to be able to ask the audience if they have any more questions. The lines are unmuted, Admiral, if we can just make sure. And if there's anyone that has a question, now's your chance to ask it. Otherwise, I'm going to jump in for the last comment from every panelist. Are there any questions from the audience? So you must have been an amazing set of panelists, because there aren't any questions for you. You've answered everybody, even though they haven't asked any question. Joshna, okay, so Joshna, I know, has sent a message through. My last final comment to all of you in closing, in basically just 20 to 30 seconds from each panelist, and let's keep it at 20 to 30 seconds. Your final points that you would like to say in terms of building resilience in amidst this entire outbreak that we're having at the moment. What will be your final 1-sentence solution to the world out there? Loretta, can we go with you?
Final 1-sentence solution is that all change starts with you. You are the only thing you can control. So make that decision.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Brother Zohair.
We can't go outside, so go inside.
I love that. I love that. There's a photo I actually posted on Facebook as well, is that, you know, here's the time to actually delve inside. Well done. Thank you very much. Colleen.
I think it's a time to be kind to yourself, to be kind to others, and to model the behavior that you're wanting.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And that modeling of the behavior for me is a huge thing. We haven't been able to get the right thing yet. And if we get that right, we're then able to move ahead. Sister Sarah.
You know, let's learn from this experience and make ourselves better and better, because we will become better as community and as human beings from this experience.
Absolutely. Thank you. And it's all about learning. We as human beings, we keep taking the emotions with us, but we forget to take the learning. My suggestion, like Sister Sarah is saying, leave the emotion, go through it, but leave it aside after you've gone through it, but take the learning from it. That takeaway for you for the rest of your life. Liesl.
I would say everybody in every given moment is doing the best they can. So believing that and allowing grace for yourself and for other people.
Thank you very much. Brother Cameron, last but not least.
Yes, I would say that what is the most important part is what is the philosophy we carry in our head. That defines the whole scenario. So my philosophy say that we had a single window of opportunity in this world. And there are certain moments where your margin of contribution makes a big difference. And this is a window of opportunity in front of us. So if we started focusing on a giving mode, whatsoever the capacity, and I like the tagline, Hawa, which you put, whatsoever in that event we are going to do what we do the best. So I think if we focus on giving at that moment of time, that create itself a big resilience within ourselves to cater any other challenges. That's my message.
Good, fantastic, Brother Kamran, and the rest of the panelists, Colleen, Loretta, Liesel, Brother Zuhair, Sister Sarah, I can't thank you enough. The information you shared here today is invaluable. It's information, and I know that people actually pay to come and sit with you and work with you, and the time that you've given us here today is completely invaluable. We would like to thank you on behalf of Orbrix, on behalf of Training Excellence South Africa. We will definitely be keeping in touch with you. We will be sending you the video, so please utilize that in your marketing that you would like to as well. And also, more importantly, to be able to spread the word of your message, because that for me has been invaluable. Ladies and gents, if there aren't any more questions or comments, then we will be closing off the session. We'd like to thank on behalf of Orbrix and Training Excellence as well to all our attendees. We had just over about 41 attendees, and I know a few people have left earlier on. We'd just like to thank you for your time, thank you for your effort, and we trust that this was of benefit to you. Are there any questions or comments as we close off? Good. So at this point, you all are unmuted. The chat is there. I have copied the chat in as well. So we will be taking out the important points and discussions that you've had so that you can all receive a copy of that. So if you have to refer to that. From my side, I'd just like to say thank you to all. Assalamu alaikum. Goodbye. And thank you very much for being part of the session. I trust it was worth your while. And Khuda Hafiz. And we wish you all the best.